welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ospenskaya.
Chris, thank you. A great pleasure to see you all back with us, continuing our exploration of Beethoven's Symphony No. 6 with Beethoven himself and Lawrence Rapchak, and to be co-hosting this show today.
Exactly. This is part 4 of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 6, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by Architects of Music. We are in the second movement, titled Scenes by a Brook, and we are in the development section of this second movement. So I'm really excited to explore this with you, Dr. Anna, and I can't wait to see what Larry has in store for us this episode.
Beethoven is a great developer. He develops his programs in an incredible way. So I'm really excited to see what that development is and how Larry will show it to us. And what connects us all here in these programs is an immense passion to be bringing musicians, music projects to our dear audiences from around the globe.
We find ourselves in the central development section, deeper into the woods, you might say, lulled by the continuous flow of the strings. And I want to mention the relative simplicity of Beethoven's orchestration thus far in this symphony. He uses pairs of flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and horns, and the strings. And that's all, accomplishing wonders, I would say. And the woodwinds really come to the fore in this movement, where Beethoven makes the most of the flute, oboe, and clarinet's natural resemblance to the singing of birds, which he will really exploit near the end of this movement. But until then, there's marvelous interplay of woodwind song with rising arpeggios. We've moved into the key of G major. There are delicate, airy trills in the violins, gentle pulsation of horns and bassoons, all floating above and around the flow of the strings. We hear the flute and oboe in dialogue, and then they combine in a little cadenza in thirds. And the descending theme will now appear. And then unexpected modulation from G major into E flat major. And the main theme will now return, now elaborated by the range and the agility of the solo clarinet, and the eternal flow continues. And the descending theme is used now to carry us through a variety of new tonal regions. Then we move to C flat major, and ultimately through this uplifting harmonic progression. Back to B flat major by way of this very expansive and lovely dominant seventh harmony. And here is the recapitulation, and also the most complex scoring of this movement. When I led this work a few years ago, we spent a lot of time balancing all the layers of sound in this passage. First, the flow continues in the accompaniment. Second, violins, violas, and cello. Then there are the horns and the second clarinet. They play this in octaves, slow moving. The bassoon and the first clarinet imitate one another in rising arpeggios. The oboes echo in the distance. And all of this happening at the same time, and over all of this, a single flute gently singing the main theme before being joined by the first violins. Here's how it all sounds. And even though we perceive all of this as the natural flow, the continuation of our wondrous journey, this is in fact a technically correct recapitulation of the opening third of the movement, now, as you expect, in the tonic key of B flat major. And as the music seamlessly transitions into the coda, we move into the subdominant key of E flat major for this exquisite passage that sighs, that exudes this rapturous sense of bliss and tranquility. And Beethoven's use of appoggiaturas there, very expressive as always, leaning on the other harmonies. They create some intensely gorgeous dissonances. Those are the actual clusters of sound created by the flutes and the oboes sustaining this against the appoggiaturas of the clarinets. So exquisite and intense. And there's the famous nature cadenza within the coda. And composers have always been fascinated with musical imitations of nature sounds, and birds in particular, and national identity has never been an issue. Here's Vivaldi's Italianate spring breezes and cheerful birds. And prepare yourself. Here is the unearthly beauty of the French zephyrs and nightingales of Jean-Philippe Rameau. And here the Germanic turtle doves, the violin and bassoon trills, in Haydn's great oratorio, The Creation. And now Beethoven uses 3 woodwind instruments to imitate the specific songs of 3 birds. Not just a generic sort of chirping, but an actual notated approximation of their song patterns. And he even writes their names into the score. The nightingale, played by the flute in a rhythm that's as close to free, unmeasured natural song as could be notated. And as the flute trills, the high oboe imitates the wachtel, the quail, combined with the familiar 2-note call of the cuckoo, played by 2 clarinets. And the movement ends in a state of hushed, serene beauty, with the final appearance of the familiar descending theme to complete the scene. As Beethoven wrote, "It's as if every tree in the countryside spoke to me, saying, 'Holy, holy.' Spiritual repose, renewal, even salvation, it would seem."
Wow.
Oh, what a beauty.
Yeah, one thing to definitely talk about when you have a symphony that depicts nature, you definitely have to use a lot of videos in nature. And you have a lot more liberty to use different ones. And I think what the video editors did was fantastic. Those transitions, those videos they chose of birds, of the sunset, really, really wonderful.
All the images which go together with Beethoven's music and Larry's
Yeah.
narration. I love the ending of that movement with that moon and peaceful going into the night.
Yeah, it's really truly beautiful. I mean, let's talk about from the beginning how he Beethoven or Larry uses this thing about going deeper into the woods, right? With this kind of idea of using the development, and he really does do that. There's a darkness, there's a light. He uses key changes, very quick, in different tonal realms in order to achieve this. How does it make you feel listening to this, and how he uses the, like you said, the continuous flow of the strings to get you deeper into the woods? It's almost magical how he leads you in.
Yeah, it's always like following a fairy tale. He leads you into
Yeah,
this
yeah.
journey through with the creek, as it starts as a brook, as a creek, and then takes the movement of its own. You get deeper and deeper into more and more sounds, and there's the assigned sounds to different species, different animals, and different birds and so forth, and then they also blend together. And the interesting thing is, you pointed out how Beethoven uses all the transitions from one key to another, which was unusual, especially in such a rapid succession. We're going from
Right.
a key of F major, then we go into C flat major, which is an unusual key in its own, and
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, and then what oftentimes escapes even musicians just listening to the symphony, and I'm so glad Lawrence Rapchak brought it up, is those quote unquote clusters. Now, we call clusters a dense collection of pitches when they're not necessarily harmonically organized, and they present a sound conflicting sound, usually used by composers to represent some dramatic or conflicting or kind of emotion. Here, it's pretty amazing how Beethoven creates those unblending combinations of harmonies which are not meant to be played at the same time, especially
Yeah.
if it's not a 21st century kind of music, yet they sound longing for that resolution, which comes 2 beats later, and at the same time they don't create that conflicting emotionally striking sound in there. They just create a momentary breeze of wind.
Well, yeah, there's a
feeling,
momentary expression, I think, is really beautiful. Especially if you consider how if you go into nature, it's not like the bird calls are all singing constantly. It's not like they all know what a perfect third or perfect fourth or fifth are or minor third, and they're not really blending like that. It's not sort of how singers may sing in an opera. Right, there's always this sort of dissonances and there's calls, and if you go to a rainforest, it might be monkeys and other things calling out there. Nature doesn't rhyme with what we call consonants, really. If anything, it's a constantly dissonant way in which it happens, that I think he's taking inspiration from. And I think this is what these clusters, what I like about what Larry does is he uses a very kind of music theory of word, but adds a very meaningful way for us to understand it. And I think that really adds a depth to what we understand. Yeah,
it makes you listen for certain things which otherwise you wouldn't notice maybe so much. And they are really beautiful. There's combinations of clustering chords, and the way part of it is sustained from the previous measure, and then another part is layered on top of it. It's a very unique spot, and the way Beethoven created it is really incredible and beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
But when you're just listening, glossing over, unless Larry takes you by hand and says, look, look at this treasure there, you may not notice it. And this program is really peppered with those invitations to discovery, which work, of course, for people who don't know symphonies very well, but as a professional musician, I'm discovering a lot together.
Yes,
there
of course.
with Larry as well.
Well, what's also really, speaking of what you're saying, and Larry taking us by the hand and also guiding us through and pointing things out, which I think is absolutely accurate too. What he also does is he takes us back in time to different composers. Let's talk a little bit about the nature cadenza. That's quite famous in there. And what's really interesting about what he does with this sort of nature cadenza is he takes inspiration probably from nature, the bird calls, and this is not the first time anyone's done it. It's not revolutionary, as he mentions. Vivaldi uses it. Jean-Philippe Rameau does this. Haydn uses it in his creation. Beethoven imitates other birds and quails in order to create this sense of this free cadenza. Cadenza is usually very associated with a soloist of sort, and this there is a soloist, but the soloist is a bird.
It's a trio of soloists.
There's
three of them.
And there's different birds that are just calling to one another, and I think that's so unique, and it tells a beautiful story, paints a wonderful picture without being too in our face about it. You can really sit back and enjoy it aesthetically, but you can also take it apart and understand it more, like what we're doing, which is wonderful.
Exactly, and I like how Larry really keeps in perspective the technique, the compositional technique which Beethoven uses, and the meaning of it, the underlying plan, the underlying meaning of it, I haven't noticed before working with this program how the main theme of the entire movement is not really depicting any birds. It's a song which you could hear, the ti da 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 da. So that one, it could be a folk song, or it could be just from any piece of music created by man. When it's placed into those other sounds surrounding it, which are invoking, of course, the reminiscence of birds and other nature sounds, it really places man right in the midst of the nature. It makes that song really belong as part of the nature, which is a big philosophical discussion, of course, for Beethoven, for artists and philosophers, and for literature, for everyone. Always, and Beethoven, he has his own take on it. Man is part of nature, and this is the immersion. And in many other of his compositions, he has conflict
Yeah.
and resolution, all of that. But in this particular symphony, it's that immersion which creates harmony.
Well, the I love that point because it's probably understated. A lot of people will think of this idea of Sturm und Drang, the kind of stormy nature within music, and man against the storm. And there's a very famous painting where you can see a man, he's looking out into the ocean and there's a storm around him, and it feels very much like man is against turmoil and the disruptive, explosive nature of nature of nature, nature of the natural environment. But what Beethoven does in this symphony is he presents to us that it's not all storms. You know, man can be immersed in nature, and it doesn't have to entail us being up against big waves, tsunamis of craziness,
It doesn't have
chaos.
to be a struggle, doesn't have to be a fight.
It doesn't always have to be a struggle, which is very strange and interesting for as a notion for Beethoven. You know, most of his music is very much characterized by this. But as you move in towards the middle, and the later periods, you really sense the spiritual side of Beethoven, who acknowledges, maybe in his deafness, that it's not all that there's a transcendent nature that can really bring us to become a part of everything that we're surrounded by. And you can take a walk around the woods, and it's not always gloomy skies and thunder and lightning. It's very evident, as a contrast to the Fifth Symphony, that no, there's much room for
There's
peace and
much room
serenity.
for harmony out there. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a
like
good
proper
point.
harmony, beautiful harmony, and not
Yeah.
always just a struggle, like you said.
And to hear that from Beethoven, who, just like you said, you're absolutely right, is a manifesto of struggle and drama. To hear that and to see, with the help of Larry Rapchak, how much exquisite effort and understanding and depth Beethoven put in there, it really elevates the importance of the nature. And I don't know, I use that as a very motivational message from the great composer to us.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to wrap up. I think there's one last little point I want to bring in before we do end, is that it's really important in a way for us to listen to music in this day, because the sound and the world that they create for us is very different to what we imagine in big cities like we live in today. How often do we hear birdsong? How often do we actually go into nature and hear this cacophony of birdsong and really enjoy it for what it is? I think we often think of it and hear it in movies, perhaps, and TV shows, but I think with this, it really hopefully will inspire us as professional musicians and artists and thinkers in this world to go to nature and really look to it for inspiration, but also to find, as Beethoven finds, blessed calm, and for the woodland trees to say holy, holy to us as well.
Oh, yes. And what a great way to finish our program today. And I want to thank everyone, our wonderful team, and everyone who's behind the scene, the Virtual Concert Hall's team of musicians, producers, videographers, and everyone, and our wonderful collaborators, New Media Productions, architects of music, and of course, a fabulous, wonderful narrator, Larry Rapchak, who
Absolutely.
created those stories. And Chris, I want to thank you very much for co-hosting these programs with me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for being so thoughtful and insightful. And for more insight and more thoughtful conversations, please check out our Music and Musicians Daily live show. We interview incredible musicians and music promoters and managers, pedagogues, people who are in the music world in different parts of it. It's really important as musicians to be, and music lovers, to understand that the world is not just a performing career. It's a lot more than that. And even within the performing career, there's a lot of different facets. So we present shows, and if you're interested to present alongside us, we would love to have you. Anna, myself, and a wonderful host called James Welch is also behind the scenes making sure, and would love to have you on our shows to highlight whatever you want to highlight within the music world. It's a really big world out there, and we'd love to have you on. And so please check us out if you want to watch our shows. We have many websites in which we can have many programs within the season. virtualconcerthalls.com being one of them, soundespresivo.competition.com being another. You can check us out at progressivemusicians.com and coorchestra.com for opportunities to perform with orchestra and all around the world. It's a very exciting season we have ahead, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. It's such a joy.
Yeah, and I want to thank also very much many collaborators who over the time are joining their effort and their sources and their expertise with ours and helping us produce these programs. Thank you all very much. Our family of like-minded musicians and people from the music community is growing, and I'm so proud to see that.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we're ready to finish for today, and we'll see you again in the next time. It'll be part 5 of our Beethoven 6 documentary series. And Chris, thank you very much for co-hosting with me.
All right, bye for now.
Bye to you.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Expressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.